The phone call came at 4:47 a.m., shattering the pre-dawn silence in Karoline Leavitt's Washington office. Her voice, still hoarse from sleep, would soon deliver the most devastating blow to American corporate leadership in modern history. By sunrise, 67 of the nation's most powerful CEOs would resign in disgrace, their companies' stock prices plummeting as a corruption scandal of unprecedented scale sent shockwaves through global markets. The list she was about to release would not just name names. It would expose a web of bribery, fraud, and backdoor deals that had poisoned the very heart of American capitalism. What began as a silent 3-year investigation was about to become the largest financial earthquake since the Great Depression. The White House press room had never been so silent. Karoline Leavitt stood before the packed podium, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the microphone. The document in her folder contained 3 years of meticulous investigation bank records from offshore tax havens, encrypted communications intercepted by the FBI, and testimony from whistleblowers who had risked everything to expose the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen," her voice cut through the murmur of reporters, "what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how America views corporate leadership." The cameras focused on her face as she opened the folder. Inside it, 847 pages of evidence documented the largest corporate corruption scheme in American history. A criminal network that stretched from Manhattan boardrooms to Pentagon offices, passing through federal regulatory agencies and state legislative chambers. The first name she read sent gasps through the room. Marcus Blackwell, CEO of Titan Industries, the third largest defense contractor in the United States. The charges were staggering: $2.3 billion in fraudulent government contracts, bribes paid to Pentagon officials, and weapons sold to prohibited nations, including authoritarian regimes in the Middle East and Mexican drug cartels. "Mr. Blackwell submitted his resignation 30 minutes ago," Leavitt announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her words. 40 floors above Manhattan, in his corner office overlooking Central Park, Blackwell sat slumped in his Italian leather chair, watching his company's stock price collapse in real time. The red numbers flashed on the screen: down 47%, down 52%, down 61%. Decades of empire building evaporating in minutes. His wife Sarah found him there, tears streaming down his face. She had driven straight from her tennis club in Long Island after receiving a desperate call from her personal assistant. 28 years, he whispered, his voice broken. 28 years building this company, starting with nothing but a $50,000 loan and a dream. And it's all gone in a single morning. Sarah placed her hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles. "Marcus, what did you do? Tell me this is some terrible mistake." He couldn't meet her eyes. "I thought I was protecting our employees, our shareholders. When the government started cutting defense contracts in 2019, I panicked. We had 15,000 families depending on us. But somewhere along the way, I became everything I once despised." The memories flooded his mind. The first secret meeting in a D.C. hotel, when a lobbyist whispered about special opportunities in exchange for consulting fees. The moment he signed the first falsified document, telling himself it was just once. The gradual descent into moral abyss, each corrupt decision making the next easier to rationalize. Within 2 hours of Leavitt's announcement, resignation letters flooded corporate headquarters across the nation. The magnitude of the scandal was suffocating. Executives from all major American industries were implicated in a corruption network that spanned 2 decades. Jennifer Walsh, CEO of Medicor Pharmaceuticals, was in the middle of a board meeting when her assistant burst through the glass doors of the 52nd floor conference room. "Ma'am, your name is on the list. The news networks are already running the story." The room fell into deadly silence. The 12 board members' industry captains, former government officials, respected academics, stared at Walsh with expressions of growing shock and horror. She had been accused of deliberately withholding safety data about a diabetes medication that caused heart complications in elderly patients, complications that led to 17 documented deaths and possibly hundreds more unreported. Board member Thomas Chen, a former FDA director who had trusted Walsh for 8 years, spoke first. "Jennifer, please tell us this isn't true." Walsh felt her world crumbling. Her hands trembled as she looked at the faces around the table. People who had supported her, believed in her, trusted her integrity. Her voice cracked when she responded. "I authorized the delay in reporting the side effects. The drug was helping so many people. More than 2 million diabetics depended on it. I thought we could find a solution before more people died?" Chen's interruption was sharp, unforgiving. The weight of her decisions crashed down on her like an avalanche. Those 17 faces haunted her now patients who trusted her company with their lives. Margaret Torres, 73, grandmother of 5 grandchildren who loved her bedtime stories. Robert Kim, 68, retired teacher who had dedicated 40 years to educating underprivileged children. Anna Kowalski, 71, Holocaust survivor who had found a second chance in America. Each name on the casualty list represented a family destroyed by her corporate calculations. "They trusted us," Walsh murmured, tears beginning to flow. "Margaret Torres sent me a letter last year thanking me for giving her the chance to see her granddaughter's wedding. She died of a heart attack 3 months later." The silence in the room was deafening. Chen cleared his throat. "Jennifer, how many people knew about the cardiac risks?" "The entire research team. The regulatory department. The executive board." Her voice was barely a whisper now. "All of us knew. And all of us chose profits over people." "I'll submit my resignation immediately," Walsh said, her 3-decade career ending with a whispered admission of guilt. By noon, the New York Stock Exchange resembled a war zone. Traders shouted over each other as billions of dollars evaporated from pension funds, retirement accounts, and investment portfolios. The Dow Jones plummeted 2,847 points, the largest single-day drop in financial history. The VIX Volatility Index spiked to levels not seen since the 2008 crisis. On the trading floor, veteran trader Rick Sullivan, with 32 years of experience, watched in horror as decades of economic growth were erased in hours. "I've never seen anything like this," he shouted to his colleague through the chaos. "It's like all confidence in the American system evaporated at once." The shockwave spread far beyond Wall Street. Elena Rodriguez, a 54-year-old teacher from Phoenix, watched her retirement savings disappear on her phone screen during lunch break. 26 years of careful investing, disciplined monthly contributions even when money was tight, all gone in a matter of hours. "My husband died last year," she told her colleague Maria through tears, her voice breaking with emotion. "This money was supposed to carry me through retirement. I was going to travel, visit places David and I always dreamed of seeing together, spend time with my grandchildren. Now I don't know if I can even afford to stay in our house." Maria wrapped her arms around Elena, feeling her body shake with sobs. "We'll figure this out together. We always do." But across America, millions of similar conversations were taking place. David Thompson, a 51-year-old factory worker in Detroit, discovered his 401k had lost 60% of its value. He called his wife Linda at work, his voice heavy with defeat. "Linda, we need to talk. We're not going to be able to retire when we planned. Maybe never." College student Amy Chen, in her Berkeley dorm room, watched her parents' investment in her education fund vanish, threatening her ability to finish her medical degree. Her parents had worked double shifts for years to save for her education, believing they were investing in the American future. The human cost extended far beyond executive boardrooms. When Consolidated Manufacturing's CEO resigned amid accusations of environmental violations, the company's stock crashed so severely that layoffs became inevitable. Plant manager Jim Morrison had to deliver the devastating news to 800 workers gathered on the factory floor. "I've worked alongside you for 15 years, Morrison addressed the crowd of anxious faces, his voice echoing through the vast industrial facility. "You trusted this company, trusted leadership to do right by you. That trust was betrayed, and now you're paying the price." Mary Patterson, a 43-year-old welder with 2 teenage children, raised her trembling hand. "Jim, how long do we have jobs?" Morrison lowered his eyes. "We're cutting 400 positions immediately. More cuts will come if we can't stabilize the company." The collective groan that swept through the crowd was heartbreaking. These were people who had dedicated their lives to building American products, who took pride in their work, who trusted their leaders to make ethical decisions. Now they faced Christmas without jobs, mortgages they couldn't pay, children whose college dreams were at risk. Behind Leavitt's explosive revelations lay the courage of ordinary employees who refused to stay silent. Rachel Foster, a former accountant at Pinnacle Energy, had spent sleepless nights documenting her company's illegal price manipulation schemes. In her modest suburban Dallas home, Rachel had transformed her home office into an improvised command center. Documents scattered across every surface, printed spreadsheets covering the walls, USB drives hidden in a basement safe. For 18 months, she had secretly copied files, recorded conversations, photographed internal documents, all while maintaining her facade as a loyal employee. "I kept telling myself it wasn't my responsibility," Rachel explained in a televised interview that evening, her hands still trembling slightly from nervous exhaustion. "But then I thought about single mothers choosing between heating their homes and feeding their children, because energy prices were artificially inflated. I couldn't live with myself knowing I had evidence that could stop it." She described the moment that finally broke her. An intercepted call between executives laughing about low-income families being forced to choose between electricity and medicine. They were literally laughing at the people they were hurting. That night, I knew I had to act. Rachel's testimony led to the resignation of Pinnacle Energy's entire executive team and the exposure of a cartel that had cost American consumers over $18 billion in inflated energy costs. Dr. Michael Santos, a research scientist at Biotech Solutions, had risked his career to expose his company's falsified clinical trial data. His evidence revealed that life-saving cancer treatments were delayed by 2 years due to fabricated safety concerns designed to protect the company's existing drug patents. "Patients were dying while we played corporate games," Santos said, his voice heavy with emotion. He had become a scientist to save lives after losing his own daughter to leukemia at age 7. "I became a scientist to save lives, not to help executives pad their profit margins." Santos described the sleepless nights reviewing data, seeing clear evidence that new treatments were safe and effective only to watch reports being altered and buried. "There was a potential cure for the form of cancer that killed my daughter, and they were hiding it to protect inferior drugs that generated more revenue." His courage led to the immediate resignation of Biotech's leadership and the accelerated approval of treatments that would save thousands of lives. As evening fell, President Harrison addressed the nation from the Oval Office. The weight of the crisis was evident in his voice as he spoke directly to the American people, the lines in his face deeper than ever. "My fellow Americans," he began, his hands folded on the historic desk, "today we learned that some of our most trusted institutions have failed us. But we also witnessed the power of truth, the courage of those who spoke up, and the resilience of our democratic systems." In living rooms across America, families grappled with the implications. The Peterson family in Iowa gathered around their kitchen table, trying to explain to their teenage children why their college savings had been decimated. "Dad, I don't understand," said 17-year-old Jake Peterson, looking up from the papers scattered on the table, investment statements that were now worth half what they were worth that morning. "How could so many important people do such terrible things?" His father, Mark, an electrician who had worked overtime shifts for years to save for his children's education, struggled for words. "Sometimes, son, people in power forget that their decisions affect real people. They get caught up in numbers on spreadsheets and forget about families like ours." Jake's mother, Lisa, added gently, "But today also showed us that there are still good people willing to fight for what's right. That's the America I want you to remember." Their younger daughter, 14-year-old Emma, asked the question everyone was thinking. "Are we going to be okay?" Mark and Lisa exchanged glances across the table. They had lost $180,000 in savings in a single day, money that represented years of sacrifice, canceled vacations, home dinners instead of restaurants. "We're going to be okay," Lisa said finally, her voice stronger than she felt. "It may take longer than we planned, but we're going to be okay. And more importantly, we're going to make sure this never happens again." In Chicago, the Rodriguez family gathered around their small TV, translating the news for grandparents who spoke mainly Spanish. 3 generations watched in silence as decades of American progress seemed to melt before their eyes. Abuela, 16-year-old granddaughter Sofia, said in Spanish, "Do you still believe in the American dream?" The 82-year-old matriarch, who had arrived from Mexico with nothing but hope and determination, pondered the question. "Mija," she replied, "the American dream isn't about trusting powerful people. It's about ordinary people having the courage to fight when those people let them down. Today, ordinary people fought. The dream survives." In the weeks that followed, a remarkable transformation began to take shape. Companies scrambled to rebuild trust through radical transparency measures. New leadership emerged, many of them promoted from within, carrying the scars and wisdom of witnessing their institutions near collapse. Susan Martinez, promoted from Chief Ethics Officer to CEO of Consolidated Manufacturing, addressed her remaining employees on her first day. The factory seemed strangely empty with 400 positions cut, but the faces that remained showed a mixture of cautious hope and justified skepticism. "I know many of you are angry, scared, and wondering if you can trust leadership again," she said, standing in the same spot where her predecessor had announced the layoffs. "I won't insult your intelligence with empty promises. I'm here to earn that trust back, one decision at a time." Martinez had spent 12 years at the company, watching corruption grow like cancer through the organization. She had filed reports about environmental violations that were ignored, raised concerns about safety practices that were silenced, fought to implement ethics programs that were sabotaged by senior executives. "You deserve to know the truth," she continued. "For 5 years I tried to work within the system to fix it. I failed. But now we have a chance to rebuild this company the right way." The federal government moved swiftly to implement new oversight measures. Karoline Leavitt, now heading a new corporate accountability task force, worked 18-hour days to ensure such widespread corruption could never again go undetected. In her new office at the Department of Justice, surrounded by boxes of evidence and assisted by a team of 200 investigators, prosecutors, and forensic auditors, Leavitt reflected on the magnitude of the task ahead. The investigation had exposed not just individual crimes, but systemic failures that allowed corruption to flourish for decades. "This crisis revealed the worst of corporate America," Leavitt reflected in her journal that night, writing by the light of her desk lamp while the city slept around her. "But it also revealed our capacity for renewal, for justice, and for ordinary people to demand extraordinary accountability from those in power." 6 months later, Elena Rodriguez found herself in an unexpected position. Her district had elected her to the school board, recognizing her newfound passion for transparency and accountability in public institutions. Her retirement might have been delayed, but her purpose had never been clearer. "Sometimes the worst moments reveal our greatest strengths," she told her first board meeting, looking at the faces of parents and educators who had faced their own financial losses. "We lost our savings, but we found our voice." Rachel Foster, the accountant who had risked everything to expose Pinnacle Energy, founded a non-profit organization dedicated to protecting corporate whistleblowers. Working from a small Dallas office, she helped dozens of other employees find the courage to speak out against corruption in their own companies. Dr. Santos left the private sector entirely, joining the National Institutes of Health to ensure that vital medical research would never again be compromised by corporate interests. His first project was to accelerate the development of the cancer treatments that had been suppressed, work he dedicated to his daughter's memory.